going to share you the lesson plan for this particular subject, that is data structure and algorithm. So there we are going to specify the reference textbook. Okay, so apart from this also plenty of textbooks are available for this particular subjects. Just I'll brief you about what are the topics or the chapters which you are going to deal with in this semester. So it is a 3 credit subjects, and total number of lecture hours will be around 36. And you are in the first year, basically we have a 6 chapters here. Okay, in the first chapters you have an introduction to DSA. In this particular chapter you are going to study or study about the C++, means that you are going to have a introduction to C++. What exactly we are doing here? We are going to cover the all the control structures and as well as the other concepts being used by the C++ in this particular section. In addition to this, you are going to deal about the algorithms. Okay, means that how you are going to analyze the algorithm. So, what are the different types of methods are available which are used to analyze the algorithm in terms of performance. So, these are all the things which you are going to deal with in the first chapters. In the second chapters, you are going to deal with the different types of data structure such as arrays, stacks, and queues. So these are the 3 different types of a basic data structure which we are going to use. Most of us we studied about these arrays, stacks, and queues. How we can able to make sure these the data types for the maintaining the data and all those things. And these are the abstract data types which you are going to deal. Okay, and also you are going to study about the how you can able to implement these data structure either by using arrays or by using the linked list. So if you look at the queues, there are different types of queues are available like linear queue, circular queue. These things you are going to deal in this particular chapter. In the third chapter, we are going to deal about the linked list. Okay, so when you are going to, when you say linked list, so the pointers is very much important for this. Okay, without pointers, it is not at all possible for implementing the linked list. So here we are going to deal about how you can able to create a memory dynamically for your particular application. The different types of linked lists are available which we are going to deal in this chapter. Say for example, single linked list, double linked list, and also you are going to perform the various operations on the linked list. Say for example, if a linked list already exists, how you can able to add the new node into that particular into the existing list, or other operations like sometimes I wanted to delete a particular node in the linked list, so that can also be done by using this linked list. So when you are deleting a node, actually you need to provide the link between the previous node and the next node. How you are going to manipulate the pointer values without affecting the performance of the linked list. So which you are going to deal all these things in these chapters. In addition, not only this, we can able to perform the various operation like insertion. Sometimes I wanted to insert a new node at a specific point, or at the beginning of the linked list, or at the end of the linked list. It all depends upon the applications. So all these things comes under the linked list chapters. Next chapter is nothing but a trees. In these 3 chapters, we are going to discuss about the another data structure. Okay, so that is a binary tree. How you can able to represent your data in the form of a binary trees. So here also, in these chapters, you are also going to deal about how you can able to do tree traversing. Tree traversing in the sense that how your algorithm or how your program is going to visit all the nodes in the trees. There are different methods are available for tree traversal, like recursive and as well as the non-recursive. So you are going to deal about these two types in these three chapters. In addition to this, you are going to study about the some of the application of the trees. Okay, so in the communication system, like you are going to use the Huffman coding, and also you are going to make sure the threaded binary trees by using these. So performance of the algorithm can be increased. And in the last chapters, you are going to deal about the graphs and charting. Okay, but in these chapters, we have a topics which are taken from the graphs. The graph itself a very big chapter, but we are going to deal about only the basics of the graphs in this case. In addition to this, you are going to deal about the different types of searching and sorting algorithm. There are various types of searching and sorting algorithms are available. Depending upon the application, we can able to make use of those algorithm for our requirements. Okay. If you look at this sorting algorithm, we have a different types like insertion sort, quick sort, merge sort, deep sort, radix sort, and others also. And coming to the searching, we have a linear search and also the binary search. So you are going to deal about these kind of algorithms in the last chapter. So this is a brief introduction to the topic which we are going to cover in this semester. And since data structure and algorithm is an general subject, but don't expect the program for each and every algorithm. We are going to teach you the algorithm, but you supposed to implement the those algorithm, and so that you can able to get a better idea. Without implementation, just simply if you are understanding the algorithm, okay, it is of no use. You try to implement yourself. There are different, plenty of compilers are available. You can able to make use of any of the compilers so that you can able to implement the algorithm which we are going to teach in the class. So this is about the brief introductions about the syllabus of this DSC. In the first few classes, we are going to talk about the fundamentals of C++. But you all familiar with the C++ in the first year itself. I think you have studied in the first semester or in the second semester. Just for refreshing purpose, we are going through these topics quickly. Okay, in one or two classes, I am going to complete all these the topics. That is not in detail. Okay, so that in brief we are going to cover this. Is the slides is visible?
Yes, sir. Also, excuse me, sir. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
record the session if it's possible?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. But I am going through these topics very quickly, because these are the very basic things which you already studied it. It is there just for others. If you know it, no problem. Okay, for others, let them to understand it, so that we can able to cover this one very quickly in few classes. But we'll go through the algorithms. Okay, so depending upon your speed. Yeah, just I'll start recording. If you look at any basic computer languages, you can able to find the character set. This character set is the basic the symbols which are used for making the or writing the programs. In C++, you have a following set of characters like we have a letters. The letters can be A to Z, both uppercase and as well as the lowercase. And also we have a digits, so they are from 0 to 9. And in addition to this, we have a special characters like semicolon, question mark, and greater than and less than symbol, and so many. But I have not mentioned all the special characters the C++ support here, but it is having a plenty of special characters. In addition to this, we have a white space. Okay, this white space represents the new line. That is nothing but it is represented by using a /n symbol. In C++, we have the program as a many elements. Okay, these many elements are identified by the compiler as n tokens. These tokens are classified into different types. They are keywords. Second one is called as an variable. Third one is a constant. Next one is operators, and last one is nothing but special symbols. Means that the tokens are classified into following 5 types. You know that a keyword is a one which is used to perform the predefined task. Okay, in any of the languages. Okay, whenever you are going to write a program for any of the application, you are not required to use. You are not supposed to use the keyword as a variable and also as a constant name. So that is the one of the basic rule you are supposed to remember it. In C++, we have a rich set of keywords. So most of the keywords are listed here. Like we have a auto, we have a boolean, the break, case, and so on like that. All these keywords are going to are going to perform the predefined task only. So as we go on writing the program, you will be able to understand what are the functions of the keywords. For any given languages, each and every language will support the specific types of data. Okay, and also, so the each data type has its own sizes. In case of C++, we have a following of primary data types. They are nothing but integer, the character, the float, and as the double. So these are nothing but the basic primary data types. Next, we have a derived data types. All arrays and structures and belongs to these derived data types. Next, we have a user-defined data types. We'll see these one by one. And coming to the variables, variables is nothing but an entity where you can able to keep your value in the name of variables. The main function of the variable is that it is used to force the address of the memory location where the values are where the values are stored. The name implies that variables means the value in the which is stored in the memory is not constant. It can able to change depending upon the type of the statement which we are going to use. So the common there are specific rules which we are going to use for defining the variable names in the any in the given languages. So these variables are also called as an identifiers, and they can be written as follows. Like say for example, have a variable say sum, means that you may be using the variable sum to hold the sum of the values, and average it is used to store the average of say some n numbers. In C++, the variable can be defined by using the following syntax. So we have a data type variable followed by name is equal to initial value. Mean that the first field we have here data type. Okay, so this field, this data type is going to specify what kind of value the variable is going to the store. So that is being defined by this data type. This data type can be integer, it can be float, or it can be double, and so or it can be character also. Then we have a variable name. Okay, any valid variable name or meaningful variable name can be given here and equals to initial value. So in certain application, what we requirement at the point of declaration of the variable, we would like to initialize the variable values. So those are all called as an initial value. So the initial values can be assigned to the variable at the time of defining the variable itself. So that is nothing but initial value. This, whatever the initial value which you are going to specify, the type of this initial value should match with the data type. Say for example, if I write a statement like this, int followed by a is equal to 20, where 20 is the integer value, this integer value is stored in the variable a. It is stored in the variable in the say means, so inside the computer memory, the memory will have a symbolic name. The symbolic name is nothing but an A. Okay, so that wherever you wanted to access that particular memory, you can able to make use of the symbolic name A. So that in that location, you can able to find the value 20. The next float equals to 23.56. Here the variable is missing. Say float high is equal to 23.566 and double d is equal to 34.61. So this way I can able to declare the variables or define the variables. Sometimes I wanted to define the variables and also I wanted to keep this value constant. Okay, my program should not able to make any changes to the defined value. For that particular operation, we are going to make use of the constants. Say for example, in case of C++, we have a different types of constants. They are integer constant, real constant, character constant, and string constant. Means that a value, the the constant in the sense, those values should not change with the program execution. It should remain throughout the program. Say for example, if you wanted to have a floating point constant value, I can able to write it as a 12.35, 0.00567. All character constants are formed by putting a character inside the single quote, and the string constants are formed by putting a string within the double quote. Okay. So the main difference between the character constant and string constant is that in case when you are going to form a character constant, a single letter, or it can be a numeral or it can be a alphanumerical, whatever it may be, it should be included within a single quote. But whereas in case of string constant, a single letter, whatever in single letter or a group of characters, if they are enclosed within a double quote, then it is called as a string constant. The major difference between these two is that whenever you are going to create a string constant, so the null character will be inserted at the end of the every string. Okay, that is the difference between these. So that null character will access a terminating character for that particular string, because in C++ we have a rich set of functions which are used to operate on the strings. Okay, so those functions are going to use the null character as an end of the string for their application. Let us look at this particular program. We have a simple program. So this simple program is going to read and display a number. You know how to you know the structure of the C+ program. Initially, the first part of the program is going to have some include directives, because we are going to make some library functions. Those library functions are defined in the some header files. So the respective header files must be included in your program while using those particular function. So for this particular application, I require iostream.h and conio.h, because the clear screen is defined in the conio.h file. All cout and cin objects are defined in the iostream.h header files. And the void main, this is the beginning of this program. This void, the first word void, indicates the return value by this main function. Void means no values is returned by the main program. So here I declared a variable, integer variable, and I'm going to display a message on the screen. So that is done by using the cout. Okay, cout, enter a number, and followed by cin. Cin is going to read the value from the console. That is nothing but the keyboard. Whenever we enter a value, that value is stored in the variable a. So the later I am going to display the entered value. So this is the syntax how we can able to display the entered value a here. And this is the get is a function. Just it is of no use. But whenever going to try to execute your program, if you wanted to see the result which was displayed on the screen, user screen, I am going to use a guess function. Just it is going to read the keyboard. When I press when I hit any of the key on the keyboard, I'll come out of this so that I can able to see the previous result. Next we have a operators and expressions. So operator is nothing but a symbol. It is very much important for writing a program. It tells the computer what kind of operations you wanted to perform on the given number. Either it can be logical operation or it can be arithmetic operations. Next we have an expression. Expression is nothing but the combinations of operators and as well as the operands only. Okay. So that whenever that particular expression is evaluated, it is going to reduce that expression into a single value. As I said, consisting of a single entity, it may be having a single value. Either it can be a constant or it can be a variable, or it is consisting of a combination of such entities. Okay, but whatever the entities we have here, entities means it may be a variable or it can be a constant values. Okay, these entities should be interconnected by one or more operators. So these are the this is the table which gives you the operators supported by the C++. We have a different group of operators. In this case, we have arithmetic group. It has a following operators, say positive, negative, multiplication, and operator for division, and also for modulus operation. For relations, sometimes I wanted to compare the values of one variable with the another value. So I can able to do it by using the relational operator. Like I wanted to know whether a given value is less than the other or not, or greater than, or equal, not equal, or I wanted to test, sometimes I want to test whether E less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And sometimes what I want is I wanted to combine the result of different expressions, more than one expression. So in that case, I can able to make the logical operator. So that AND symbol is used for combining the two expressions, and OR symbol, and we have a NOT symbol. The AND symbol in the sense that, okay, so this particular logical operator is going to produce the true result only when if both left and right expressions are evaluated as true. You suppose if any one of the expression is evaluated as false, okay, the whole expression, the final result of that logical expression is treated as false only. And this is the OR operator. The OR operator is used to compare the two expressions. In this case, either left expression is evaluated, may be evaluated as a true, or right expression may be evaluated as true, but the overall expression is evaluated as the true only. Say for example, if I have a expression A greater than B, or I can write A greater than say C, like that. Okay, so that In this case, either if this expression is evaluated true or this is true, then the whole expression is evaluated as a true. Next, we have assignment operator. This is used for assigning the value in the right hand side to the variable which is present in the left hand side. Next, we have a arithmetic assignment operator. Arithmetic assignment operators, they are nothing but plus equal and minus equal. The main function of the arithmetic assignment operator is that it is used for combining the arithmetic operation as well as the assignment. Say for example, I would like to do A is equal to A plus D. Okay, so in this case, I am going to use the assignment operator as well as the arithmetic operator, that is the plus operator here. I can able to combine this operation by making of this. That is, if I write A plus equals to D, if I write, this is similar to the previous one only. So that this is the shortened way of performing the arithmetic operator. Same thing holds good for the remaining operator also. Sometimes what I want is I wanted to shift the values either logically left or logically right. I can able to make use of this shift operation. It is for left shift operation. This one is for the right shift operation. Left shift assign and right shift and assign. And we have a unary operator. They are used to operate on a single value. Unary means single here. Say for example, sometimes I wanted to add a value to the some variables. I can able to make use of this. Say for example, I wanted to add a 1 to the variable, another 1 to the variable A. I can write A plus 1 is equal to A. Instead that, you can able to write this one as an A plus plus, so that the value will be incremented. Okay, and also we have a bitwise operator. These bitwise operators are used to operate on the operands, okay, bitwise. Okay, means that AND operation we can do by using this, logical OR operation, and by using these two we can perform the XOR and as well the logical OR operations, exclusive OR operation we can able to do it. And we have an operator for subscripting. Okay, this is very much useful in the arrays, and this is nothing but the function call operator. This is for dereferencing. This points very much useful in the pointers, and we have a allocate and fill operators. They are nothing but the new and delete. Okay, these two are nothing but the dynamic memory operation of dynamic memory allocation operator. By using the new, it is possible for you to allocate the memory during the runtime, whereas the delete operator is used for releasing the resources assigned to a particular variable during the runtime. So now let us consider the expressions and operators belongs to the arithmetic group. Say arithmetic expressions we have here. Say A is equal to x plus 5 and P is equal to Q minus 1. And your relational expressions can be formed by making of the relational operator. We have discussed that one in the previous slide. In this case, I am going to find whether the variable A is greater than B or not. Okay, so by using these relational operators, I can able to determine the magnitude of the values which are specified in the expression. Another expression we have here, A greater than or equals to the sum of these two. Sum of these two means y plus 10. If sum of y and 10 is greater than or equals to A, okay, so that is tested by using this. Okay, the value is this expression is evaluated as true only when if a value is greater than the or equals to the summation of these two. Next, logical expressions can be formed by making of the logical operator like this. As I said, this logical expressions is used to combine more than one expression. So the whole expression is evaluated as true only when if A greater than B is true and if X equals to true. So then only this logical expression is evaluated as true. Suppose if A greater than B, this is true, and if X equals to 0, this is false. Okay, in that case, this logical expression is evaluated as false. Okay. Similarly, I can able to make sure this expression for this not is the symbol which is used for negating the result. Suppose if the expression is greater than, say for example, x greater than or equals to y, if this particular expression is true, then the outcome of this is false. Because of this means that whatever the result we are getting it, that is negated by making of this explanatory symbol. So we have another operator that is called as a conditional operator. It is also called by a name ternary operator. The ternary operators are nothing but the question mark and as well as the colon. So the syntax of using this conditional operator in our application is like this. We have expression 1 followed by expression 2 and followed by colon x minus 3. Okay. So here expression 1, expression 2, expression 3, they are the expressions. Sometimes expression 2 and 3 may be expressions or it may be some values also. Let's see how exactly it works. It is nothing but the it works like what if statement, if else statement in the C++. In this conditional operator, suppose if the expression 1 is evaluated as a true, this statement is going to return the expression 2 value. Suppose if the expression 1 is evaluated as a false, then expression 3 is returned. Say for example, I'll write like this. Suppose if A greater than B, say I'll write F is equal to A greater than B, and I'll put question mark here. Say for example 25 colon followed by say 30. This is my statement I have here. Okay, say for example I am going to find the A greater than B here. Say for example A is equal to 5 and my B value is equal to 4 here. Okay, A greater than B. Since A is 5 and B is 4, the expression is evaluated as true. When the expression is evaluated as true, so that the value 15 is returned. That is nothing but expression 2. This is assigned to the variable say F. Suppose I'll take the another value 3 and I'll establish this 6 here in this case. So A is 3 and B is equal to 4. 3 is not greater than 6, so that the expression is evaluated as a false for this case. So when it is evaluated false, this is the statement is going to return the expression 3 value, that is nothing but the 30. 30 is assigned to the variable F. Okay. So this way I can able to make the bidirectional selection. So whenever you are going to use operators in your applications, you need to know how exactly your expression is evaluated. Okay, so for that you need to know about the operator precedence. Okay, for each and every group we have a operator precedence. Okay, so that based on their priority, the expression will be evaluated. Say for example, if you look at the unary operators, you have a plus, minus, plus, plus, and minus, minus, and explanatory. So these, whenever these unary operators appears in your program, so those expressions are evaluated from left to right. If the expression is made up of arithmetic operators, so that the arithmetic operators are evaluated from the left to right. Left to right. Next we have arithmetic operators plus and minus. So these arithmetic operators are classified two types because depending upon the priority. Okay, so that again they are going to evaluated from the left to right. Similarly, shift operators are evaluated from left to right and relational operator from left to right. Almost all the operators are evaluated from left to right, excluding the unary operator and conditional operator, expression operator, and as well as the assignment operator. But rest of the operators are evaluated from the left to right. So when you are, suppose if any of the problem statement is defined, and you are asked to solve those problems, the assigned statement, problem statement, we need to write the set of statements, okay, in order to get the solution for the given statements. Okay, but in case of C++, all statements are executed sequentially in the order you are in the order in which those statements are written. But actually, in practice, it is required to change the order based on the certain conditions. Say when you are going to write a program here at this certain part of your program, you wanted to make a jump from one part of the program to the another part, or sometimes you wanted to repeat the execution of the same set of statements certain number of times or till certain condition is met. So in order to do these things, okay, C++ is going to support the following decision making statement, or you can call it as a control statement here. Okay, they are nothing but if statement, we have a switch statement, and we have a conditional operator statement, and we have a go to statement. Okay, so these statements are used to control the flow of program execution. Say for example, I wanted to find whether the variable a value is greater than the b value. How we are going to do it? So this can be implemented either by making the if statement or if else statement or the switch statement. Okay, so we'll discuss all these things one by one. Let us see the syntax of the if statement. The if statement as the following syntax here. Okay, if followed by the test expression. So this test expression can be any logical expression here, and here we have a two curly braces here. So if we are going to write more than one statement, that statement should be, all the statements should be written within this curly braces, and as well as the, and below this I have another statement, say called as statement X here. Okay, means that whenever the test expression is evaluated as true, means that the compiler is going to execute all the statement which belongs to this particular block. So the compiler is entering into this block only when the expression is evaluated as true. Otherwise, it is going to skip the statement block, and finally it goes and executes the statement X. When the expression is evaluated true or false, okay, so that the statement X will be executed. So statement X is executed after the statement block only when the expression is evaluated true. When the expression is evaluated as false, so the compiler is skipping the statement block and it's coming and executing the statement X. Say for example, look at this example here. It's a part of the code here. Suppose if the sales is greater than 10,000, okay, certain organization is going to give certain commission to the sales engineer, salesman, okay, and depending upon the their performance. Suppose if their sales exceeds 10,000, okay, so that the salesperson will get some amount of commission here. Okay, so that can be tested by mix of this if statement. If sales greater than 10,000, so the salary will be salary plus commission. So this should be given. Suppose if the sales is less than 10,000, okay, so this is going to skip the statement, so that whatever the salary value which is assigned somewhere here, okay, so that the same salary will be available at this point. But this salary value will be modified only when this expression is evaluated as true. Next, we have one of the drawbacks of this if statement is that, say for example, you are given two options. Depending upon the choice, either you go with either the option 1 or the option 2. So that can be implemented by using the if only if these if statements are nested over there. So in order to simplify our job, we are going to make the another bidirectional switching statement, that is nothing but the if else statement. The if else statement has the following syntax: if followed by text expression, So we have a true block statement here. We have a else block. This is the if block, this is the else block. So let us see when the if block is executed and when the else block is executed. When the expression is evaluated as a true, the statement which belongs to the if block will be executed. All these statements will be executed. The control never goes to the else block and directly it comes to the statement X. Suppose if the expression is evaluated as an false. If the expression is evaluated as false, the control goes to the else body. All the statement belongs to the else body is executed and finally the control goes to the statement X. So this is how the if else statement works. It's a binary statement. If you have two options here, so only one option is executed at a time. Okay, but it does not happen. Okay, in case of if statement. But still we can able to achieve this by using the if statement by nesting the if statement. This is an example for demonstrating the if else statement. Suppose if the job code is equal to 1, I wanted to assign the rate as an 7, okay, to the variable 7. Suppose if the job code is not equal to 1, the rate is going to be assigned is nothing but 10. Or say for example, let us assume that your job code is equal to 1 initially. Job code is equal to 1. In the first instead, when the job code is equal to 1, the rate will be 7 now. Suppose in the second case, if the job code is equal to say for example 5, okay. So job code is equal to 1, okay. Now the expression is evaluated as false. When the expression is evaluated as false, it is going to execute the statement belongs to the else body. That is now the 10 is assigned to the variable rate. So now you'll get an 10 over here. When you go and display it, okay, here, okay, for the first example, for the first job code value, say 1, so that the cout is going to output the value 7 in this case. But in the suppose if the job code is equal to 5, what we assume for the second iteration. So in this case, so the cout statement is going to display the 10 instead of the 7. So this is how the if else statement works. Okay, this is a program. This simple program which is used to demonstrate the use of the if else statement here. And in this case, you are going to find the largest among the two numbers. Okay. So we are going to read the two floating point numbers. So they are nothing but A and B. Okay. We are reading it by using the scene object, the scene A, B, and this particular statement reads the two values from the console device, that is nothing but the keyboard. Say for example, the inputted values is nothing but 2.5 and the second value is nothing but say 3.7. Okay. So the first value which I entered is nothing but A for A and second value is nothing but B. Okay. Then after that have an if statement here if A greater than B. Since the A value is 2.5, B value is equal to 3.7. So that A greater than B 2.5, B is not greater than 3.7. So that okay, the if statement will be skipped out in this case. So that it is going to execute the else statement, that is nothing but cout large is nothing but B. So in this case, the largest number is the largest floating point number is B. So that value is displayed in this case. So this is how you can able to use if else statement in your program. Next we have a switch statement. Switch statement is nothing but the extension to the if else statement here. Okay, because if you look at the if and if else statement, they are called as an bidirectional statement, meaning that you can able to choose any one among two. Okay, that's why it is called as a bidirectional statement. Still, you can able to choose one among many by nesting the if as well as the if else statements. But instead of that is going to become a little bit complex. Okay, the programmer job is made easy by using the switch case statement here. So switch is nothing but the multi-directional statement. Okay, so that if you have many options, so that only one option can be desired option can be selected, or desired set of codes will be executed by making of this switch statement. The general syntax of the switch statement would be like this: switch is the keyword, switch followed by expression. It can be an expression or it can be constant value also. Okay, if it is an expression, it should be evaluated to a value, single value. And the body of the switch statement consisting of several case statements. Okay, the case is a keyword. These are all nothing but the keyword. I have a value here. Okay, value 1, value 2, and so on, value 10. In addition to these value 1 to value n blocks, we have one more block that is called as an default block. Okay, we'll see when the default block will be executed. Default is the keyword. Okay, here in this case, switch, case, default, these are all nothing but the keywords here. Okay, and in addition to this, here we have a break. Okay, the keyword break. The main function of the keyword break is that it is used to bring the control out of this switch statement. Okay, so that is the function of the break statement in the switch statement. Here we have a value 1 here. The value 1 should be a constant always. It should be a constant. It cannot be a variable. In any of the statements, this cannot be a variable. It should be a constant. Either it can be integer constant or it can be only the character constant. Okay, so based on that, okay, so that the expression will be this switch statement will be executed. So how exactly this switch statement is going to work means the compiler is going to take the expression value. This expression value is going to be matched with the case value 1 first. Suppose if the expression value does not matches with the case value 1, then the control goes to the case value 2. If the case value 2 does not matches with the expression value, then it keeps comparing with all the case values. Say for example, if the expression value matches with the value n, when this match occurs, so that the compiler is going to execute all the statement which belongs to this particular case. That is nothing but the statement belongs to this particular block will be executed. At the end of this block, we have a break statement. This is going to remove the control out of this statement, and the compiler is going to execute the statement X, which is outside the switch statement here. So this is how it works. Say for example, let us assume that there are no break statement in this switch statement. If there are no break statement in this switch statement, then the compiler compares the expression 1 value with the value 1. If the value 1 does not matches the expression, okay, it go and compare the value 2, the second case value. Okay, if the expression value matches with the second case value, that is nothing but the value 2, what the compiler is going to do means it is going to execute all the statements, okay, which belongs to the case value 2, case value 3, case value 4, and so on like that till the default. This happens only when there is no break statement. So in order to avoid the execution of the subsequent statement belongs to the different case blocks, so we are going to insert the keyword break at the end of the every case. Okay, so that is the function of this break. So then only we can get the meaningful result. Otherwise, the result we won't be able to get the meaningful result. Say for example, in certain applications where the expression value does not matches with any of the values from 1 to n, in that case the default case block will be executed. Okay, in this case you can able to put some messages which will describe the errors in this particular input value, so that the user can able to take care of the such errors. Okay, so this is how exactly the switch and statement works for the multiple operand. Okay, so this is the one of the example program. This is going to evaluate the expressions by using this switch case statement. Okay, so let's see here. I have a character variable, that is nothing but a choice. I have a two integer variable a and b. I am going to read the two numbers. I am reading the first value. I am reading the second value. Say for example, I am using a 20 and the second number will be, say for example, 10. I read it. Now this program is written to perform the arithmetic operations like say addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Okay, so I am asking the user to enter the operator for the desired operation. Okay, the user supposed to enter plus for addition, minus for the subtraction and star for the multiplication and slash for the division. So let us assume that the user has entered the star. Okay, character star. This is for multiplication. Okay. So now the control enter into the choice. So in this case, the choice value is nothing but a star. Okay. As I said already, all case values must be a constant. Either it may be an integer constant or it can be only the character constant. You're not supposed to be even the floating point constant also in this case. Okay. So switch does not support other type of constant excluding the character constant and as the integer constant. Now the choice character value is nothing but a star here. Okay, the first character is nothing but a plus. It does not matches with this choice, so that this will be skipped out. Okay, next it comes to the second case constant, that is nothing but the minus. Again it does not matches. Okay, this is skipped out. Okay, finally it comes to the third case statement, so that now the choice matches with this case value. Okay, so that the compiler is going to execute this statement. Cout is equal to product a into b, mean that it is understood that you supposed to multiply the first value with the second value. We are doing it and multiplied and the value will be displayed over there. After that, the control will go out of this switch block in this case. Okay, this is how exactly it works. Say for example, let us assume that user supposed to enter the plus, minus, or is supposed to enter this. Suppose he might be by wrongly hit this greater than key here. In that case, let's see what happens. The choice is holding the value that is greater than symbol, so that it does not matches with the first plus, minus, star and after this slash, so that the default case will be executed. When this default case is executed, the default block statement will be executed, cout invalid choice, so that it can able to display the some erroneous input. So this is how we can able to make use of the switch for our application. Okay, so those are the how exactly the if else and as well as the switch statement works. Now coming to the decision making and looping control structure. We have a statement that is nothing but a while statement. We have a do while statement, for statement here. Okay, these three are used for looping. Mean that whenever you wanted to perform the same task some number of times or till certain condition is met, I can able to make use of these looping control structures. Either I can go with the while loop or do while loop for the for statement. And we have a control structures. These are the break and continue statement, which are very much essential in certain application, whether you wanted to break the looping or whether you wanted to continue inside the loop. Okay, skipping the certain statements over there. We'll see these one by one. Okay, so next we have a iterative loop control structure. So as I told, the iterative loop control structure are nothing but while, do while and the for while. Main function of these nothing but they are used for executing the set of statements some n number of times or till certain condition is the met. First while statement which I am using now is nothing but the while statement. The general syntax of the while statement will be like this. Okay, while followed by test condition. Next we have a while body here. Okay, able to write any number of statements in this between these two curly braces. Okay. Okay, so while test condition. So how exactly it works means as long as the test condition is true, this while body will be executed. As and when the while body, test condition is evaluated false, the control goes out of this while body. So this is how exactly it works. Here we have some example program. It is used to find the sum of all the natural numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, I wanted to find sum of the numbers from 1 to 100 by using the while loop here. Let's see how exactly it works. I am using a variable sum. Okay, this is the variable which is used to store the sum of the natural numbers from 1 to 100. Initially, the sum value should be 0. That I am initializing it. And have a variable loop control variable that is nothing but the n. It is declared as an integer value. Since 1 to 100, so natural numbers, so that the integers summation of integer I am going to find here, so that integer variable I declared here. Okay, I wanted to start from the value 1. Okay, have to end at 100 here. Okay, for that I am going to use the initial value 1 that is assigned to the variable n. Okay, now n will act as a loop control variable. Okay, this is used to control how exactly the loop execution of your loop is controlled by this particular variable. Now I have a expression here. The expression is written like this: n less than or equals to 100. Okay, so the expression is evaluated as true as long as the n value is less than or equals to 100. When it is true, so that these two statements belongs to the while body will be executed. Sum is equal to sum plus n is equal to n plus 1 here in this case. Initially sum is equal to 0 and n is equal to 1, 0 plus 1. So that is 1 is assigned, the n is incremented by 1. Again it goes here. Now the n value is equal to 2 here. Because of this n is equal to 2, 2 less than 100, so that you are finding the sum. So previous value is 1, now 2, now it becomes 3. And the next value is equal to 3 and so on. So the loop will be continued till n value reaches 100. Now let us see what happens when n is equal to 100. When n is equal to 100, your value sum will have the value sum of the number from 1 to 99. So now n less than or equals to 100. N is equals to 100. The expression is evaluated as true. Now this will be executed. Okay, so that this sum as a sum of number from 1 to 99. Now 100 is added. So now it has a variable sum as a values, sum of the values from 1 to 100. Now n is equal to n plus 1. That is, now the n value becomes 101. Now it becomes 101. So n less than or equals to 100. N is not less than, because n value is 101. It is not less than or equals to 100. So that, okay, the expression is evaluated as false, so that it will come out. So that we are going to display the sum of the natural numbers from 1 to 100, which is stored in the variable sum here. Okay, so this is how we can able to use the while loop here. Okay, here I am going to use only the simple examples here, so that you can able to make use of these control structures for even complex problem solving also. Next we have a do while statement here. Okay, do is nothing but the keyword, and while is also nothing but the keyword. Do followed by body of the loop. This is called as an do while body here. The statement which belongs to this will be executed as long as the expression is evaluated as true. This is the test condition here. Okay. The one of the main difference between the while and do while statement is that at least once the do while body will be executed. This is not so true in case of the while statement here, because while support the entry condition, do while exit condition means that first you are going to test the conditions in case of the while statement. Okay, if it is true, then only you are going to execute the statement belongs to this while body. But whereas in case of the do while body, you are allowed to execute the statement belongs to the do while body. Later we are going to test the condition, mean that at least one time this do while body will be executed. This is not so true for the while body. Okay, so again the same example which I have discussed in the previous slides. Okay, you are going to find the natural numbers from 1 to 100 by using the do while condition. Okay, so here sum is declared as an integer, sum is equal to 0. I have a counter. There I used the n. Okay, here I am using a counter. Okay, as a variable here. Okay, do sum is equal to sum plus counter. Now my counter will be incremented. I am going to test while counter less than or equals to 100 or not. This do while body will be executed as long as this expression is evaluated true. The once the counter value greater than 100, it comes out of this loop. Okay, so that the variable sum is going to have the value that will be displayed by using the cout object. So next we have the statement. The another statement is nothing but the for statement. Okay, the syntax of the for statement is like this. Okay, for it is nothing but the keyword. It has a 3 parts in this case, 3 fields. Okay, one is called as an initialization field or test condition, where you can able to use the expression here, and here you have an increment. It's not exactly the increment. You can able to make use of the some other means to change the value of the loop control variable. In this case, is not exactly the increment. You can able to make use of the any kind of the statement, arithmetic expressions or shift operation, any kind of statement, so that is going to change, that should change the value of the loop control variable. Next we have a body of the loop here. Let us see how exactly this for loop works. Whenever the compiler encounters this for statement, so it is going to execute the initialization part first. Means that in this case you can able to have some initialization statement. Those statements will be executed first. Okay, after initialization, so you are going to test the condition, test condition. Okay, compiler is going to evaluate the test condition. Suppose if the test condition is evaluated as true, now the control enters into the body of the loop. Okay, the statement which belongs to this for body will be executed one by one. At the end of this for body, the control goes back to the last field, third field, that is nothing but the increment field. In this field, the loop control variable value will be modified here. This the latest value of this loop control variable will be used in this test condition. Again, test condition will be evaluated. Again, if it is evaluated as true, then the while body statement could be executed, and so on here. As long as the test expression is evaluated as true, the while body will be executed. Once the test expression is evaluated as false, so that the control will come out of this while body and it's going to execute the statement which is just below the for body statement. Again, the same example we are using here. We are going to find the sum of the natural numbers from 1 to 100 by using the for loop here. Okay, so here I am going to use the loop control variable. I am going to use the control variable as a counter here. My variable which is used to store this sum of the number from 1 to 100 will be the sum. Okay, it is essentially 0 is assigned to this. Okay, so now this is the initialization part. I wanted to start from 1 to 100, so that either you can start from 1 or you can start from the 0 also. It doesn't matter here. Okay, now the counter value is compared against this 100 here, because up to 100, I supposed to count the sum, find the sum of the numbers here. So counter value less than or equals to 100, that I am testing. Since
Hello?
initial value, yes.
मेरा एक और एग्जाम है 7 बजे से 2 घंटा का।
Hello.
अभी नहीं, दूसरा एग्जाम हमको पता नहीं था। सिट्रिक्स का भी एग्जाम आज अभी मिला है, पता है? आज ही 7 बजे एग्जाम है बोलता है।
May I know who is this?
क्या कर? हाँ। अभी मेरे को अमेज़न का भी तो एग्जाम देना है, वो कब दे फिर?
Hello, please mute yours.
अबे अमेज़न तो ऑफ कैंपस है ना मम्मी, सिट्रिक्स ऑन कैंपस है, ये ऑन कैंपस है। और रखो श्रेयांश का कॉल आ रहा है, रखो तो।
Concern should take care of it.
हेलो।
May I know who
Hello?
is speaking? Hello. Okay, so the counter is equal to 0, counter value less than or equals to 100. So now the initial value is 0, it is less than 100. So this forward statement will be executed. You are adding the counter value to the sum. So final, next you are going to increment the counter value. That is nothing but counter plus plus. Now it becomes 1 less than 100. Summation you are doing it again. So the loop will be repeated like this. Every time the counter value will increase. Let us see here. After 100 iteration, let us assume that counter value becomes 100. Okay, whenever the counter value is equal to 100, the expression is evaluated true because it is less than or equals to operator we are using here. The expression is evaluated as true, so that you are going to find the sum of counter and as well as the previous accumulated sum value. Next, we are going to increment the counter value. Now it becomes 101. Okay, so now the expression is evaluated as false. When it is evaluated as false, you are coming out of this loop and a for body statement, and you are going to execute the statement which is just below the for body. So now the sum of these values which are stored in the variable sum is displayed here. So this is how you can able to make this for body for looping. Okay. So the looping control structure always need not be used for what till certain to execute the loop respective body of the statement for certain number of times. Depending upon the certain condition also, it is also possible for the programmer to exit from that particular loop. This is about the control structures. Next class we'll start. I'll just will start with the arrays. Today I'm going to stop at this point. Hello. Aditya Vikram.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, today I'm going to stop at this point. Next class we'll start with arrays. Okay, and these are all the very basics concepts which we are going to teach here. Better to have have a look at any of the textbooks. So I think you have come across the different kind of textbook, different textbook written by the different author. So you can able to go through any of the textbooks. Okay, and here the programming is very much essential for solving the algorithm. Okay, you need to practice. You may not be practicing the or writing the high level language programs. You better to start with the simple program, so that it is you can able to at the end of these topics you can able to write the program for the complex algorithm also. Okay. So thank you all for attending the class, the first session, and I think next class will be on the Friday, right? Friday 8:30, and we'll meet on Friday 8:30. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, will you be sharing the slides?
Yeah, I'll be, everything will be uploaded to the team. Okay. You can
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right. All the materials will be kept in the file. I am going to create as some file, some folders over there, so you can able to access those.